Morning, everyone. Welcome to Desktop Central Training. I thank everyone for joining today's webinar in your busy schedule. Let me introduce myself. My name is Abraham Zebaraj, and I'm a product specialist in Endpoint Management Solution. I'll be the presenter for today's webinar. Let's have a quick look at the training schedule. As you all know, this is a 5-week training series. And now we are in the second week of the training, and today's topic is software deployment in Desktop Central. So all the trainings will be recorded, and it can be easily accessed in the below mentioned link, desktopcentral.com/training.html. In case if you missed the previous videos, you can access it from the link. And even registered participants will be receiving this through email. Okay, before we go into the software deployment in Desktop Central, we'll first see what is Desktop Central. So Desktop Central is a unified endpoint management solution which helps you in managing desktops, laptops, servers, and even mobile devices, your smartphones. So the traditional endpoint management solution has some difficulties in managing your modern IT devices, which involves heterogeneous devices and also the devices which travels outside your organization's network. So this Desktop Central offers an umbrella approach as a unified endpoint management to manage all the endpoints and the devices within an organization and also the devices which travels outside the organization. So these are all the devices that Desktop Central can manage. And UEM edition. So UEM edition of Desktop Central includes all Desktop Central features, which include software deployment, patch deployment, and all other features, and also the OS deployment module and modern management of Windows 10, and also the MDM feature, mobile device management feature. If you want to know more about this, you can refer this link below. Okay. Supported operating systems. The Desktop Central software deployment supports all 3 major operating systems, Windows, Macintosh, and Linux. So here are the split ups. And let's have a quick look at the architecture of Desktop Central as well. So Desktop Central is an on-premises solution at the moment, and this also works in client-server application model. So agents should be installed on each and every endpoints that you wish to manage. If it is a mobile, you need to enroll them. If it is laptops or computers, you need to install agents on them. So to install agent, there are different methods available. You can install agents through group policy if your machines are managed through Active Directory, or you can also install agent through console. You can import the Active Directory domain details into the console, and you can push out the agents from the console, or you can use a manual method or a script-based deployment to install agent. After installing the agents will all report to the server, and you can manage them. So with the help of the agent, you can manage the machines which are in local area network, which will be available in the same network where the server is located, or the machines which are outside your local network. Let's say it could be in wide area network, or it could be the machines connected in VPN, or it could be a roaming users as well. So when it comes to wide area network, when it comes to a remote office network, you can use this option called distribution server. What is distribution server? For example, if you're managing more than 10 machines in a remote office, remote site, and if you have concerns in bandwidth, you can use this distribution server. So when a patch or a software deployment task is created for these machines in this remote office, so this distribution server will act as a representative, go to the main server, download all the required files required, and replicate it here locally into these client machines. So this feature will help you in managing the bandwidth efficiently. Even roaming users who move from one location to another location can be easily managed by Desktop Central. So to achieve this, you can enable the NAT ping functionality, so using which you can let the agents to talk to the server even when they are outside the local network, or you can place the server in DMZ directly. In case if you have some constraints placing the server directly into the DMZ, you can go for this additional component called Secure Gateway, which is also called as forwarding server. So this forwarding server acts as a secure gateway server between the roaming agents, and in fact all remote office agents, and the desktop center server located in your secure network. So any communication which comes from the roaming agents and the remote office agents will only go through this forwarding server. So this will be an additional security feature. And the desktop central architecture is scalable to manage even more than 20,000 missions. So this is possible only because of this refresh policy that we use. We call it as 90 minutes refresh policy. So every desktop central agent will be contacting the server for every 90 minutes. So that is called as 90 minutes refresh agent refresh policy. So this feature ensures all computers in the network communicate to the server regularly and periodically. So two important factors are ensured here. Number one, network is not choked by the agent communication, meaning the bandwidth is not being disturbed during this agent server communication. And also the performance of the server is not getting affected by the agent server communication. And Desktop Central even has an intelligence to endure the systematic and streamlined communication from all the agents at regular intervals to the server. For example, in a network of 90 computers, one computer will reach out to the server per minute. At the same time, if it is going to be 900 computers in your network, 10 computers will reach out to the server per minute. And for the larger networks like 9,000 missions, 100 computers will reach out to the desktop central server per minute. So using this feature, agent can communicate to the server without any issues or hesitation. So here are the ports used by Desktop Center. So we recommend you to open the required ports to manage the missions effectively. For example, voice and video chat is one of the features associated with this Desktop Center, which works on the UDP port, which is 8443. And even agent server communication happens on 8020. And if you want that to happen on a secure manner, it will happen on 8383. And even agent to server notification will happen on 8027. So to know more about the ports, you can visit this below URL, desktopcenter.com ports. Meanwhile, if you have any queries, you can type your questions in chat. Our expert panel available will answer your questions here. And these are the components involved in Desktop Center. We have already discussed about server, agent, and the distribution server. So notification server is another important component which plays an important role in any on-demand task and in tools like remote control and in any on-demand scans. So failover server will also brings an additional server which will actively monitor the primary server and takes over the control when the primary server goes down. So this feature eliminates the downtime in your business as well. Okay, right. Even you can place your Desktop Center server in AWS or Azure platform at the moment. So there are advantages placing your server in cloud. For example, if you're a managed service provider, placing the server in cloud will be an advantage for you to easily manage the missions from different customers. And even to manage more roaming users, placing the server in cloud will be an added advantage. So this does not involve more, this is a cost-effective solution, and the maintenance cost is very less as well. Desktop Center will be available on cloud very soon. And for now, like we have released other cloud solutions. To know more about Desktop Central, you can visit this link, ManageEngine.com products/Desktop Central. Okay, so here's today's topic. So today's topic is software deployment. So before we move into software deployment in depth, here's the agenda of today's topic. First, we'll start with the overview of software deployment, and we'll see how it works in the background. Followed by that, we'll be discussing on the uses of software deployment and its feature with few real-time examples for better understanding. First, we'll see how an administrator can install non-commercial and commercial applications easily using Desktop Center. And also, we'll see how we can avoid the creation of help desk tickets with respect to the application installation. Followed by that, we'll be discussing on other few interesting scenarios and solutions that we came across in our support experience. And during this session, if you guys have any questions, you can very well ask your questions in chat. Our expert panel will answer that for you. By the end of the session, we'll also discuss on few frequently asked questions during this presentation. Okay, let's move on. First, why do enterprise need a software deployment? Okay, generally, we need an enterprise software distribution solution to distribute and automate various software packages to be installed on the machines. So if I have large number of machines that I'm managing, installing applications on each machines will take more time for me. So I need a centralized solution which can control and manage the software deployment. So that's the main requirement here. Another thing is, when it comes to help desk perspective, so normally people will create tickets for installing applications and all that. So they will request a lot of tickets there. So as an administrator, you should have an effective solution to avoid those kind of requests, which will flood your help desk ticketing. So you can use the features in software deployment solution to avoid that, and you can proactively resolve those tickets. So those kind of options will be available in a proper software deployment solution. Okay, so now let's discuss how software deployment works in Desktop Central. So first important requirement when it comes to software deployment here in Desktop Central is configuring the software repository. So in software repository, we have two different software repositories that we allow to use in software deployment here. One is network share and another is HTTP repository. What is the use of this? For example, if you want to deploy an application to the machines which are connected locally to the server, which are in the local office, otherwise, so you can use the network share. So the agent binaries will be placed here in the network share, and the agents will directly access the binaries from the network share and install them. At the same time, if the machines are traveling outside your local network, let's say it is in a public Wi-Fi network, or if it is in a different remote office location, you cannot depend on the network share because of the accessibility issues. So you can use the HTTP repository in that perspective, and you can let the agents to download the files directly or through the distribution server. Let's say that you have configured a remote office with the distribution server. In that case, this distribution server will download the required files from the HTTP repository and keep it here. And from here, the agent machines will download it locally and just install it. If the machines are directly in internet, they will reach out to the server directly and download the files through HTTP and install them. So these are all the two types of repositories that you can use here. Let me show you how you can configure this first. So here is the console, and here in the console, I'll go to Software Deployment tab. I'll click on Software Repository option here. So here I have two tabs, Network Share and HTTP Repository. When it comes to network share, I have two options again. One, I can give a specific path and I can create a network share from the console directly, or I can map any existing network share. As an administrator, if I already maintain a network share where all the software binaries are available, I can map the drive here, or I can use a new one. And at the same time, I can also specify the specific user credential, like an admin credential, through which the agent can access this network share. So mainly, the permission required is read and execute. So you can define a specific user account here. At the same time, you can create and you can configure a HTTP repository as well. So using this HTTP repository, you can upload any files directly over here into this repository, and you can let the agents to download the files. So you will be specifying a specific network share. Not a network share, it could be a local repository as well. So this is how I will configure the network repository, right? Network share and HTTP repository. Okay, Let's have a quick look at the difference between this network share and HTTP. So when it comes to network share, it is mostly applicable only for local agents, which is the agents which are in LAN. If it is a HTTP repository, it is applicable for both the machines in LAN and WAN, especially. So you can very well go for the HTTP repository, which is applicable for both. And again, since it is a network share, there is no limit technically for this network share. It can be of any size. You can have any um, huge type of files available in that network share. But if it is a HTTP repository, for every single package, the size cannot exceed beyond 7 GB. So that's one limitation. And in my experience, uh, mostly the package size will not exceed more than 5. So we have set the limit as 7 GB here. And the setup and maintenance might be required for the network share, but for HTTP, it is not required. Okay, so these are the differences here. Okay, so we also maintain around more than 4,500 predefined application templates in this software deployment here. If you go here in the software deployment, you have template section where we'll maintain more than 4,000 templates available. If you want to create any package instantly, you can create using this create package option right next to it. So that's another very big advantage that we provide to our customers. And now we'll move on to the software deployment in detail. And so let's take a real-time example to discuss about the features in detail. So Peter is an IT manager, and he has a team headed by John. So John and his team working under the IT manager, Peter. And Peter is assigning a task, a software deployment jobs to this John and team. And let's see how, I mean, like John and team is managing around 1,000 computers all over the globe. So this 1,000 computers are distributed across different locations, different countries, and there are different departments they are maintaining or managing as well. So Pete has signed a task to deploy softwares to all these computers as well as to specific departments. So let's see how John is going to use the desktop central for software distribution in this case. Okay, so here's the first task that John has. So deploying Java 8, just update 201 to all network computers here. So that's the first scenario. So for better understanding, let's assume myself as John. I'm logging into the console as John now. So John has to deploy Java update to all the computers in the network. First step, John has to go to the templates and he will check for the Java template, whether it is available or not. So I'm searching for that template, Java. Okay, here we go. I have the template for Java here. So now I wanted to create a package, but before that, let's see what this template contains. So template is where you will have the information about the package. Okay, so this is the application name, the version details, the type of the file that we use for installing this application, for creating this package, and the platform which is supported, and the location. So this is all already mapped under this template. So that's an advantage. So if you click on it, you can download the file. So this is the link from the vendor website that we have already embedded here into this template. And so other silent switches installation commands will be embedded here already. So now if I wanted to create a package using this, I'll select this. I'll click on create package. So in the background, the desktop center server will go to the specific URL that you have noticed and it will download the file. Okay. For this, I should have configured the proxy settings first. So if I have configured the proxy settings, my server can contact any vendor website and download any kind of files from the website automatically. So let's assume that I have created a package now. So the package will be available here for me in the packages list. So now I can search for Java here. So Java here. So here it is. So now John has to deploy this package to the target missions. Right. So now I will select this package and I will click on this option, install and uninstall software. So now I have selected the Windows package. So my aim is to deploy this to Windows computers first. So I'll select the computer configuration. You can also deploy this to the user profile. In that case, you can use user configuration. So now I'm using the computer configuration. So this is creating me a configuration already with a predefined name. So I can give any name, a specific name like Java test deployment, any name that you can give. Right. So now the package has already been selected. So now I can define the operation. So using the same package, I can do installation as well as uninstallation. So I can do the installation now. So I'm selecting the installation option. And now the next option is configure, install, uninstall option. So here it will ask me to specify the user account that I want to use for executing the executables to install the application. So now by default, we use system user. If I want to use any specific admin account, I can use a specific administrator account here. I can define it. So even if I want to add additional account, I can go to manage credential options from here and I can add any account and I can use that account here. So for now, I'm using a system account. And if I want to add more packages like this, I can click on add more package and I can add any other packages as well, like this. Okay. Even I can do both installation and uninstallation in the same package using this. I mean, in the same task, like doing this. Okay. Right. So next option here is the scheduler settings. Okay. This is like setting a validity for this particular task that I have created. So for example, let's take a scenario that I might not be available tomorrow, so I'll be on leave. So I want this task to be active only from tomorrow. So in that case, I will use this option, set the date as tomorrow and set the time. So only after that time, the task will be active and then the agent comes to the server based on 90 minutes policy, will read the job and do the job. At the same time, if I want to terminate the job after a specific time, right, I can set the validity period at a specific time. So after this time, the job will not be active and the agents, whichever agents comes back after the time will not even read the job. So that is something, an optional setting. You can utilize this if it is needed. The next comes the important core option in the deployment, which is deployment policy. So deployment policy is very much important because this is where you will schedule the deployment task. Usually for the software deployment and patch deployment, I have a lot of dependencies, right? For example, a user might be using the PC for a specific application. I cannot disturb them by installing some application because if I install an application or a patch, it might need a reboot or it might disturb the end user's activity, right? So I need to, as an administrator, I need to specifically set a time frame for the deployment, when to start, when to end, whether I need to show notification to the user or not. So all those conditions will be configured over here in this policy called deployment policy. So I can create a new policy or I can use anything which is already configured. So for an example, I will create a new one. I'll give the name as test. I'll say this name. And now first setting is the deployment window and the preferred weeks and the week split. So I can set the regular split or I can use this option. So this is specifically for the patch deployment. So this deployment policy is applicable even for patch deployment. So that's where this has been included as common. So you can go for this regular split when it comes to software deployment. And so here you can set the weeks, which week of the month you want the deployment to happen and which day of the week you want the deployment to happen. For example, I have selected only first week now, first and last week now. I am setting the time frame like 23, 59, 59. And I can add more schedules here like this. So, and the next split up, I can schedule second, and I can set the rest of the days like this, and I can give a different time frame. So the meaning here is whenever a machine reads a job, they will read the job and deploy the job only during this specific time frame, and also only on first and last Sundays. So based on this, you can customize your own preferred timings here. Okay, right. So the next option here is the initiate deployment at. You can let the agent to start the deployment only during the system startup or based on the refresh cycle, or either of this happens first. And even pre-deployment activities can be configured. The first is the Wake Online option. So Desktop Central supports Wake Online here. So you can configure the Wake Online on the BIOS. And if it is configured, you can enable this option to wake up the machine if it is already shut down. And also, you can use this option to download the software during the subsequent refresh cycle. Meaning, I have specified a time frame here. For example, I have specified a time like 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. for the deployment. So I want the downloading of the files, the installation binaries from the server to the end machines, the endpoints, to happen before that time and keep that ready on the client machines. So for that, I can enable this option. So before this time, let's say if I set that as 9 to 10, so before 9 p.m., all the binaries will be downloaded and it will be kept ready on the endpoints. So you can utilize this in case if you are trying to deploy this to a remote office machine, especially. And again, user notification is something that you can use for alerting the user before it starts the deployment. You can show just the notification, or you can allow the end users to skip the deployment. And you can also set conditions for skipping the deployment. You can also show a notification bar, a progress indicator on the end user's computer. And even after, this is before the deployment, even after the deployment, if I want to not to reboot, I can use this option to not reboot or shut down. Or if I want to configure a reboot, I can configure a force reboot with a message, or I can configure a postpone option with an option to postpone by the end user. This is applicable for remote shutdown as well. Right. So once the configuration, once the policy is ready, I will allocate the respective policy here, Java policy, and I will select the target. So define targets is something very simple. So now my aim is to deploy this to all the computers that I'm managing. It's 1,000 computers. So those 1,000 computers are split across different remote offices. So I'm clicking on all one by one, or I can use select all option. So all the remote offices will be selected. Even I can select the domain in the first level if you want. Okay. So then if you, in case if you want to filter it to any specific OU or group, you can use that as well. Right. Okay. So that is the target missions. And the next is the exclusion execution settings. Okay. So here you can configure the retry configuration in case if there is any failure, in case if the machine is not available during that time, the agent will not attempt it, or even if there is any failure, if the end user is using that application, it will give some error message saying that the user is using that application, so it cannot install. So in that case, you need to configure a retry option so that it can retry the installation on the next available option. So you can configure it here. You can set the count as 4 or 5, and you can configure whether it has to start the retry on the startup or on the refresh or on both. You can configure it here. The next is notification setting. So using this, you can configure. First thing is you should have configured the mail server settings, which is under admin. Here you have this option, mail server setting. You should have configured the mail server settings over here. So once that is configured, you can enable this and set the target recipient, recipient email address here, and you will receive this an alert in an email. So by which you will come to know about the status of this task. Okay, so this is how John is going to accomplish the first task that has been assigned to him. Okay, so hope this is clear. If you have any queries, you can let us know in the chat. Okay, let's move on to the second scenario, deploying MS Office 2019 to sales department. Okay, so here there is two things that you need to understand. Microsoft Office 2019 is a commercial application, but the Java and for any other application that you see here in the templates is non-commercial applications. But when it comes to Office 2019, right, again, John is going to go for the templates, search for the Office 2019, right? Okay, here is it, Microsoft Office 2019. But here, I do not see create package option like I did for the other packages because it's a commercial application. So since it is a commercial application, we will provide you some help articles through which you can manually create your package because this involves a manual download process from the vendor website by signing with your account with the license key and all that. So you will use this KB article and download that. Okay, so either you can download it from the website as it is discussed here. You can use this link and you can download the deployment tool directly from the website. So if you're downloading it from here in the website, it will be like this. It will be like a zip file and you can export it and it will be only this files, only these two files, XML file and a setup.exe file. If I already have a CD where I have all the files ready for me, then it will be like this. So I can copy the files into the network share and I can keep this ready. So all I need is the configuration XML file and the setup.exe file and the supporting files. Okay, right. So now let us see how we can manually create a package using this KB article. So now I'm clicking on package. So in this package, click on add package, click on Windows. So here I will give the name as Office 2019. So here is the package type that I need to specify. So I'm going to use a setup.exe file. So it's an exe package, so I'm going to select that. If it is an MSI based file, I can use MSI option here. So now I'm using an exe file. And next, the license type is commercial and locate installable file. Remember, I told you about the software repository. So we have configured both software repositories here, network share and HTTP repository. So network share is something that, which means shared folder, and from local computer is something called HTTP repository. If I want to use the network share repository, I'm going to use this. Otherwise, I'll use this. So for now, I'm going to use the network share, and I have already copied the binaries into the network share. So now I will click here. This is the installation tab. We also have an installation tab. So first in the installation tab, I'll click on browse, so which will automatically go to the network share repository that I have configured, which is configured here. So I'm selecting the Office 2019 package, selecting the exe file, click on OK. Since it is an exe based application, this alone will not be sufficient for me. I need to activate the application during installation, and I need to skip and suppress all the installation wizard activities. So for that, I will be using a silent installation commands, which is otherwise called as installation parameters or arguments. So I'll be using this option here. For example, for this specific exe, so this silent installation arguments switches varies for every specific application and for the vendor. For Microsoft, they have their own specific pattern. If you want to know what is the specific pattern, for example, I'm going to use the network share method. So I'm using command prompt here to call the setup file.exe file, and I'm using this slash command to identify what are all the silent commands that I can use. So now I need this config silent file where I'm going to specify the config.xml file. So config.xml file is already available with me where I have all the key files and everything configured with me. So I'm going to use that file. So even in the KB article, we have specified everything clear. So you can use this and prepare the XML file for you. Okay, right. So now I have understood that I wanted to use some specific silent commands. So I'm going to use, I'm going to the, right, here it is. So I'm going to this. So I'm going to use the option called config. Since it is 2019, it will be configure. So then I will specify the XML file path. So XML file is already available in the network share like this. So I'm going to specify the path as config.xml. So this is the complete installation command. As a best practice, before you save this package or before you create it or try this deployment using this, you can always try executing this command using this command prompt on any test mission and ensure that the silent installation command works fine and install the application silently. Okay, right. The next option is the pre-deployment option. For example, I have a specific requirement. I wanted to do some activities before the installation of this particular command. Let's say that I wanted to run some script before. I can use this custom script. I can add the script and I can execute it. Likewise, you have different type of configurations and the conditions that you can choose. For example, if I wanted to check some files before the deployment, only if the file is available, I can proceed with the installation. I can set the conditions like this. You can even set a lot more conditions like this based on your requirement. Even after the deployment of this installation command, you can do some activities like adding shortcuts, right? Doing some file copy, doing some registry changes or service changes. All this can be done over here. This is not only applicable for installation, this is applicable for uninstallation as well. So whenever you create a configuration, whenever you create a package, the best practice is to create both installation command, installation properties, and uninstallation properties with the same kind of installation commands and all that with the pre-deployment and post-deployment activities. So that you can use the same package for installation as well as uninstallation. The next is the advanced settings. In this advanced settings, you have an option to define the exe path. Again, it is redirecting you to the network share where I have the exe file. I'm selecting that path. And the next is the exit code. Okay, for every application, whenever you execute an exe file or an MSI file, there'll be a written code, which is called exit code, which will be parsed. For example, this is very much important because the desktop central agent on the machine is going to read this exit code to understand whether the installation is a failure or successful. Mostly, the exit code for every exe-based applications and other applications will be 0. Sometimes, if you're creating a package and installing that, the application might be successfully installed on the machine if you check on the control panel. But in the desktop central console, it might show you some error message. So in that case, it means that the exit code is different. So you can contact us and we can help you find the exit code and you can update the exit code here. So only then the status will be updated as success. The next is the architecture, which is 32-bit or 64-bit you can define. And the maximum time limit for installation, you can set the time limit for that. So mostly Office will take around like 30 to 1 hour of time to install the application. So you can set the limit based on your requirement. And the package details, the vendor details is Microsoft and other details can be filled. So these are all optional details, right? At the same time, if I don't want to use the network share and if I wanted to use the HTTP repository, it's pretty much simple again. I'll go ahead, select the file, and I'll select this file, select both the file, or even I can zip the files like this and I can upload it. When you zip it, there is something that you need to understand clearly. Agent will unzip the file, and when agent unzip the file automatically during the deployment process, you should only have the files, not the folder. The best practice here is if you need to zip the files, go to the folder where all the installation files is located, select all, right click, and zip them all from here, like this. So when you unzip it, you will only see the files in it, not the folder. So that is very much important. So now I have selected the file and I have uploaded that. And now in this case, the installation command slightly varies because everything is inbuilt. So I am not going to specify it, specify the network share. So at this point, it is very much simple. I'm going to specify the exe file, which is already there here. And I'm going to specify as configure and the XML file, config, or whatever file that I use under this. So by this way, I can easily let the agents to download the file internally and install them. So this will avoid any network share accessibility issues on the machines which are outside the local network. So these are the two methods how you can manually create a package. So once the package is created, you can very well go ahead and deploy this like the method that we discussed before. Okay, right. And one more thing that I wanted to highlight here is, okay, let's take the same example. I take Office 2019 package we have created. And now my aim is to deploy this to a specific group. So I have given the name, selected the package, and everything is set. Deployment policy is set. And the target, okay, previously we have selected the remote offices, but here I want to deploy that to a specific department under each of these remote offices. So I'll use the sub filter and I will use this option called OU. If I already have an OU based on the department, I can use the OU and target that OUs, respective OUs. Or I can use the custom group or dynamic custom group. So here in Desktop Central, we have an option called custom group, using which you can group the machines based on your requirement. So you have different methods: static, unique, and dynamic. So when you when you click on this help icon, it will tell you what this actually means. So static is something that you will define the computer to be added with a name, and dynamic is something that you set the condition based on the filter the computers will be added. Static is same, and static is something that, if you add a computer in one static unit group, it cannot be on a different static unit group. So that's the difference here. Okay, so now I assume that I have created all different type of custom groups with different department. Let's say that sales team, finance team, and everything. So now I can go ahead and select the specific custom group as sales team. So whenever I define this uh, task, the task will be applied only to the specific group of targets under this remote office. So that is how I can deploy this. The next option is the deploy and deploy immediately. So when I click on deploy, agents in the target group will read the job based on their 90 minutes policy. When they read the job, they will understand the job property, understand the schedule based on the deployment policy, and deploy it. If I want to let the agents to immediately read the job without waiting for 90 minutes policy, I can click on deploy immediately. But if you click on deploy immediately, the target missions can only be 50. Even if you have 100 or 250 missions, more than 50 missions over here on the target, it will ask you to select the first 50 missions to let the agents read the job immediately. So that is all about the configuration for the software deployment. Okay, so hope this was informative. If you have any questions, you can ask us on the chat. Okay, now this is a third task. John is receiving a lot of help desk tickets to install various business software applications. And how can this be efficiently handled or done? Okay, so this is the usual behavior because end users will not have access to install the application all the time, and they will not know how to install the application most of the time. So I need to provide a solution considering these two factors. So in Desktop Central, we have an option called Self-Service Portal. So in this self-service portal, you have an option to publish the applications to the end users themselves to install. For example, I'll select the target. Let's say that I want to publish certain applications to the finance team. Let's say it is 7-zip. I'm going to publish it by dragging and dropping into this selected software list. Okay. I have another category, which is Adobe Reader, which is again a commercial application, but this needs a required This requires an approval here. So if I have integrated Service Desk Plus tool, which is an ticketing system from ManageEngine, if you have integrated that here with Desktop Center, so you can utilize this feature called approval here. So if you drag and drop any application in the approval category, so the end users themselves can see the self-service portal from the tray icon, and they can click on installs if it is a commercial. If it is a non-commercial application, which is 7-zip, which I have published, so the end users themselves can install the application by clicking on it directly. So if the application is going to be a commercial application, if I added that under the request category, they will only see the option as request. So they can click on request and submit the request, and the ticket will be created for this request, and alert will be triggered there. And from the ticketing system, Service Desk Plus tool, the administrator or the person who has to approve it can approve it, and then the application will be automatically installed. So these applications have been requested for the approval, so which is waiting for the approval. Once it is approved, it will automatically deploy the application. So that's the use of self-service portal. And in case in Desktop Central, you have an option to disable the tray icon as well here in the agent settings. For some restrictions, you might have an option, or you might need to restrict or disable the tray icon. In that scenario, you can go to the self-service portal setting, and you can show that self-service portal icon in the desktop shortcut, or you can place it on the start menu. So these two options are available in the self-service portal. Okay, so this is what we have seen before. So this is how the end user can access the self-service portal from the tray icon or from the desktop shortcut. So this is how the shortcut will be available, and we can click on request, and it will install the application. Okay, right. So this is how the approval workflow works in the background. So assume that the Desktop Central has been integrated into the with Service Desk Plus tool now. So the end user who is requesting for the installation request from the self-service portal, the request will be sent to the Desktop Center server, and then it will be sent to the Service Desk Plus. Then the approver will approve the request, and then the application will be installed automatically into the client machine. So this is how it works in the background. Okay. Now we have seen what are all the options available in Desktop Central software deployment to install an application easily and in an automated way. So there are few common error messages that you might have noticed, or you might notice during the deployment, centralized deployment. One is a system cannot find the path specified or access denied, which is very common. This happens when you use a network share predominantly. When you create a package, if you use a network share, and if you define a network share here, you need to ensure that all the target missions have access to the network share. If that is the case, you will not have any error message. If there is some restrictions there, then obviously you will see this error message. The best option to check and ensure that is, if there is any failure, log into the mission, go to the network, the installation command. For example, if this is the installation command that you have specified, you will copy this installation command and try to execute this from the command prompt of the target mission and check if that works fine. It should actually launch that exe file without any error message. So that's a simple logic behind. Okay, the next important common error message here is no silent switches or invalid silent switches. Okay, again, this comes to the silent switch scenario that we discussed already. So if the silent switch is not defined properly, then it will fail with the specific error message. So if there is a silent switch specified here, for example, configure or whatever it is, and if I have specified this path here like this, configure.xml, I can give this. I can copy paste this entire path here in the machine where it fails and check whether the silent installation command is working fine or not. So this is also going to be a best practice. Okay, right. So these are the common error messages. So if you have noticed any other error messages, if you have any doubts, you can request us the same on the chat and we'll be happy to answer that. Okay, next section, we're going to discuss about scenarios and solutions that we came across in our support experience. Scenario number 1, I want to install Autodesk design software on few computers and it requires .NET framework as a prerequisite. How can I achieve this? Okay, this is a very important and interesting scenario. So we have discussed about how we can install a package using different methods. For example, I wanted to install an application like Autodesk. Okay, so I have already created a package. So let's say this is an Autodesk software. I'm selecting this application here. So as prerequisite, I wanted to install .NET framework. So I'll go ahead and select the package as .NET here and use this. So now I can reorder this to have the .NET framework to be installed first, and the first installation will be .NET and the next will be Autodesk. So by this way, I can achieve this prerequisite conditions easily. Okay, great. Scenario number 2. I have a third-party application that does not support silent installation. How I can install it? Okay, yeah, this is also another common scenario. Not all the applications support silent installation. So there are certain applications that need some user interaction. In that case, when you create a package, right, you don't have to specify the silent installation command. And one more thing, the silent installation command is mandatory only for exe-based application. For MSI, the silent installation command is very much common. So desktop central agent itself will handle that. So if it is an exe-based application, then I will specify just the exe file name like we did before. Okay, right, like we did before. And I don't want to specify any silent switches. So I can save this file. And during the installation, when I create a package, for example, like this, here I can use this option called allow user to interact. So this will allow the end users on the machines to interact with the installation wizard. So they themselves can install the application easily, right? Okay. The next scenario, I have a set of applications including Microsoft Office and CRM deployed for my sales team. I want all new salespeople to have this application installed on their computers automatically. How can I do this? Okay, again, this is also another important scenario. Let's assume that I have already deployed Office to sales department today. So today I have only 50 people in my sales department. Let's say after a month, there are few new employees joining the sales department. So in that case, how do I automatically deploy the package only to the new sales department people without disturbing the installation of the previously deployed computers? So in that case, first thing you need to configure is the configuration setting. You will go to configuration here. Under this configuration, you have the configuration settings. So here you have this option. When a computer or a user is added to the OU or group, apply the configuration automatically during the system startup or during the refresh cycle. So if you have enabled this and if you have created a configuration to an OU or a custom group, so whenever some changes happens to that OU, for example, if I have selected the target as OU, and if the new machines are added to the OU, and the agent is getting installed first, so that is considered as a new machine. So for the new machine alone, the configuration will automatically be applied. So for the older machines where the application is already installed for the same configuration, it will not disturb anything. So that's a very big advantage that you can configure. Okay, Scenario 4. So I tried to deploy a business application to a computer, but it fails. Is there a way to troubleshoot it myself? Yes, of course, there is an easy way to troubleshoot here. So whenever you create a package, okay, you in the advanced setting, you have an option to enable login for troubleshooting, which is applicable for MSI-based application. If you enable this application, whenever there is any failure during the installation, you will get the log file created in the name of the package that you are deploying. So using this, you can easily understand what is the error message and all that. In case if you need assistance, you can contact us, the support, and we will be happy to assist on that as well. Okay, so this is the next section where we'll discuss about the frequently asked questions. Meantime, if you have any questions or any other scenarios that you came across, you can discuss with us on the chat. Okay, question number 1. How can I install application for a Mac which are not listed on the template? Okay, that is pretty much straightforward. This is similar to what we have done for Windows. So you will go to the software deployment packages. So when you create packages, you will be selecting the Mac instead of Windows. And similar to Windows, you will be uploading the file. For the Mac, we will only provide upload option, which is HTTP. There is no network share option available. So you can use the advanced option, installation commands, and package type. So this is similar to Windows again. So that is available. You can manually create it. Question number 2, self-service portal is not enabled. Do I need enterprise application to use self-service portal? How do I know which edition I use? Because it's very simple. Here on the right-hand side corner, right next to the build, you can click on the license to see what is the license that we use. So this is the UEM edition that we introduced recently that we discussed before. So this will tell you whether you're using enterprise or UEM or professional edition. Only for professional edition, this self-service portal will not be available. So you can check this, and in case if you want to upgrade the license, you can contact our team. Okay, question number 3, where I can view the software deployment task. Okay, yeah, of course. So once the software deployment task is created, all the tasks will be visible here in this view configuration tab. So here you can see the status of the job and the target summary, the targets pointed to this task and everything. If you click on the job, you will see the status of the job here, the setup and execution status and the configuration details. So this is where you can see the configuration details. Question number 4, where on the user PCs does it copy the software installable? Okay, of course. So it will normally when you install an application, it will install this into the program files x86 if it is going to be a 64-bit machine. So inside the desktop central agent, we will create a software package folder and we will download the files over here. So once the files are downloaded, it will delete the file. I mean, once the files are downloaded and installed successfully, the files will be deleted from there. Okay, all right. If I want my software package to be replicated to my remote office, what is the best way? Yeah, again, we already have discussed about this. So whenever you create a job and if you select the deployment policy, so in the deployment policy, you have an option to specify the pre-deployment settings. If you enable this option, so the packages will be downloaded to the remote office machines and it will be kept ready on the local machine so that the deployment can start immediately on this deployment schedule. So this option is the best way to use during the remote office deployment. Okay, right. So that's it about this. And next, when multiple softwares are deployed in sequence, if the first package fails, does it attempt to continue, or will it fail, or how is the notification sent back? Of course, when you add multiple packages in the sequence, if you want to deploy that in the sequence, if the first package fails, of course, it will not proceed for the next package. So the notification can be sent when you configure the notification settings over here. If you enable this notification, it will be sent to you. So this is how you can get the notification. Okay, so that's it about the questions and scenarios. So hope you enjoyed the training session today. So please do rate us on this webinar in a scale of 1 to 5, that is 5 being the best. And you can also spread the word about this webinar and ManageEngine using these hashtags, and we'll appreciate your feedbacks there. And stay tuned for the next training, which is on asset management. So we can see the schedule here. And in case if you're interested in a personalized web demo and one-to-one demo with our support technicians, you can request us the same here on this link, request demo.html, or you can let us know through the chat, and we will assist you with the demo scheduling process. And we also have a world tour organized here. We are organizing different seminars, workshops around the world. So here is the schedules that we have. In case if you're interested, you can register for this and you can make use of this. This will be very much useful for you to understand the various other products in ManageEngine, and especially the endpoint management. And I thank you all once again for your time in your busy schedule today. Hope you all enjoyed and have a great day.